This is Contractor Sense with Ruth King.
Welcome to Contractor Sense. Here you discover ideas, tactics, news, and information that matters to your contracting business and you. I'm your host, Ruth King. This episode is sponsored by Profitability Movement. Google Profitability-Movement to join this community of business owners focused on building profit, increasing wealth, and giving back. Thank you for joining us. Here is how we will help your business and you today. Summer is over. Wait a minute. It's the first week of August. How can I say that summer is over? There is absolutely nothing you can do about the summer right now. Since it has been incredibly hot for most of the country this summer, I hope that you increased your labor rates and saved at least 2% of the cash that has come in the door. You can still do this for the month of August and September and October and November and December and, from now on. So, since August is over and August is not over, but summer is over, here are 7 things that you can do now that summer is essentially over. And we'll cover the first part of them before the break and the rest of them after the break. So, number 1, and which is critically important, is to say thank you to your employees. Okay. They worked their butts off this summer. Doesn't matter whether they were in the field or whether they were in the office. They worked hard, or at least they should have worked hard. So overtime was real. They actually needed the overtime to get the work done that had to get done and take care of your customers. So say thank you. There's lots of different ways to say thank you. One of my favorite ways was with a contractor I was working with. And what they do is they choose a day. And let's say they chose August 15th, which is a Monday. Probably wouldn't choose a Monday. But anyway, they take a day and all the managers cook breakfast for all of the employees. Literally, everybody has breakfast. The owner of the company came and said, thank you. We really appreciate your hard work this summer. And they cooked the eggs, they cooked the pancakes, they cooked the bacon, they cooked the whatever else it is. Some of the employees brought in, like coffee cakes and breads and stuff like that. If they wanted to, they didn't have to. The owners basically paid for breakfast, and they carved out 2 hours for the morning, after it got really, really, the busyness was over. And for some of you, it'll be over in August. Some of you, you might have to wait until September. But it's a really cool way to say thank you. And everybody enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, too. I actually got to help cook. And it was fun to watch the expressions on the faces of the employees. And they really did appreciate the fact that everybody said thank you. Everybody was appreciative of the hard work. And that's one pretty easy thing that you can do. Now, if you don't want to do, a breakfast, you might want to do a cookout, or you might want to take everybody out for a meal or something along those lines. It gets expensive doing that unless you're doing a contest. But say thank you to your employees. One way, shape, or form, you've got to say thank you publicly for all the hard work that they did this past summer. Number 2, and this one's also really important. Well, all 7 of them are important. Make sure that everything is billed and all financing paperwork has been signed. You say, of course. I walked into a contractor's office in August, and there was a stack of paperwork on his desk. I said, what's that? He said, oh, that's all the financing paperwork for the jobs we've done for the past 6 weeks. Yes. Now, think about it this way. His excuse was we didn't have time to go back and get the paperwork signed. Yeah, he had enough cash coming in the door, but that's not the point. The point is the customer didn't sign off on the financing when the job was installed. So if the customer didn't sign off on the financing, guess what? Payments haven't started yet either. So they might think, took them 6 weeks to get out here to get the financing paperwork signed. It'll take another 6 weeks for me to sign it. Not exactly what you want to have happen. So make sure at the end of the jobs, part of the job is that the financing paperwork gets signed. The installation crews can take care of it. the person who is selling the jobs, doesn't matter whether it's plumbing, electrical, HVAC, generator, whatever else it is, has to set up the expectations of payment. That means that if it is financed and financing is approved, the salesperson has to tell the customer that upon completion of the job, the project, the install, whatever you want to call it, that the financing paperwork will need to be signed, and the crew will give the homeowner the paperwork and get it signed by the homeowner before they leave. As long as the expectation is set up and the financing paperwork is put in the job folders and the job packets that the guys take to the projects, you are fine. Just make sure everything's billed, and you don't walk in and see a stack of paperwork, of financing paperwork. Number 3 is watch overtime. Now, I just said, overtime has been expected, and probably a lot of it happened this past summer because it was so busy. Now, everything that's broken is probably broken. A lot of people are taking parts of August, getting ready to go back to school. The last week of August is the week before Labor Day, and everybody takes their last hurrah vacation. So the likelihood of overtime being necessary goes down significantly. But everybody is used to overtime because they like the extra dollars in their paychecks. So they're going to stretch their time so that they get an hour or 2 of overtime. The key is to say, overtime is over. I don't know any other way to say it, but, overtime from now on has to be approved that it has slowed down enough that you can get your job done in your regular 40 hours a week. Now, initially, there'll be an hour or 2 that somebody tries to sneak in, and you've got to call them on the carpet for it and find out why, or whomever their manager has to do that, or the manager has to approve it. But overtime in slower times of the year should be non-existent, perhaps except for anybody who's on call. Yeah, they're in a situation where they probably have a few overtime hours. But the office personnel, no, they should be able to get their job done in 40 hours. Most of the field personnel, no, they should be able to get their jobs done in 40 hours. All right. So those are the first 3 things that you can do right now. Number 1 is to say thank you. Number 2 is to make sure everything is billed and the financing paperwork has been signed. And number 3 is to watch overtime. Again, people are used to it because of the summer. You really and truly don't need it anymore. When we get back from break, I'll give you the other 4. Thanks for listening to Contractor Sense.
Do you ever have warranty leak issues? One of Ruth King's clients did about 4 years ago. Thousands of dollars in expense and unhappy customers. She solved this problem for him, though. How? With a leak letter that every customer must sign when a service technician discovers a refrigerant leak. Once they implemented the letter, there were no more warranty leak headaches. No warranty leak callbacks. Happier customers. The surprising result was more replacement sales, too. To get a copy of the leak letter for free, just send Ruth an email at ruthking@hvacchannel.tv. That's ruthking@hvacchannel.tv.
We're back. Thanks for listening to Contractor Sense. And before the break, I talked about 3 of 7 things that you can do now that summer is just about over, even though it's the 1st of August. All right, number 4, make sure that all of your maintenances have been performed. This is critical. The last thing you want is to tell your customer that your maintenances are going to be in June and December and you haven't done June's maintenances yet. Most of the time, if you can schedule a maintenance a day extra, i.e. there's not as many service calls right now because, again, everything that was going to break is broken for all intents and purposes. So, make sure the maintenances have been performed. The funny part about it is some of you who are listening from Wisconsin and the northern states are going to be starting your heating maintenances and boiler startups for schools in August. One of my clients, they're slammed in August doing all the startups for all the school boilers because they have to be done before September. So for those of you who are up north, you're probably laughing right now and saying, hey, we're already into doing the heating maintenances. Make sure all your cooling maintenances have been done. If they haven't been done and you've try to contact them 3, 4, 5 times. Make sure it's in the notes in case somebody calls and says, well, you didn't do my maintenance. Well, Mrs. Jones, we try to call you here. We sent you an email. We texted you. Da-da-da-da-da. It's on them at that point. Number 5 is a little bit creative. It might be time to give them a Friday afternoon off. And the weekend, too. If they've been working and working and working in the overtime hours, or, they're all really, really tired, it might be say, okay, everybody leaves at 2 o'clock on Friday. It might be a thing where you do a cookout instead of a breakfast, Friday at lunch, and then everybody gets the rest of the afternoon off, paid. Before you have a cow over me telling you it's paid, think about how much that actually costs. You figure out your hourly rate or the total amount of payroll and divide by your gross margin. That's how much revenue break even needs to be. And you can give them the challenge, let's take Friday afternoon off and let's figure out how we can generate an extra, $25,000 next week or $100,000 next week. They'll tell you how to do it because they want Friday afternoon off for sure. Okay. Number 6 is to figure out what you want to do for the end of the year. And I know it's August, but Labor Day's coming. People start thinking about the last quarter of the year, the last 4 months of the year in September. Start in August as you're driving around thinking about where you want to, how you want to end the year. Where are you year to date? And then where do you want to be at the end of the year? What would it take to end the year with a net profit per hour of $100 an hour? I don't know where you are now. If you're at 120, you're going to say, well, why do I want to drop to 100? If you're at 120, what would it take to be at 150? And share the extra with the employees, with your team members, because they're the ones who got you there, right? What would they like to do to end the year? What contests would they like to have? And the other thing that you need to remember is that contests don't always have to be about money. Some of your employees are going to be money motivated. Some of them are going to be time off motivated, and it's usually money for what, time off for what. One month, one of my clients, we had the contest being a pair of boots, work boots. And the company had to reach a certain revenue goal, which we figured out. We calculated the costs for all of the boots, and we divided by gross margin. And that's how much revenue the company had to generate over and above what they normally would do in that month. Again, it's all math. It's black and white. It's numbers. And you can figure it out. So, if you want to do work boots, if you want to do uniforms, if you want to do a tool, a day off, whatever it is, the math is there. It's Ruth's Rule number 2 or Ruth's Rule number 1 from there. All right, and last but not least, for those of you who have children or your employees who have children and they start school in August, and in Georgia we go back to school in August. In a lot of the southern states we do. Northern states it's usually the week after Labor Day. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The key is to find out the schedule. So if it's in August, get the schedule for the kids in August. What are the parent-teacher conferences, dates, because guess what? Your employees are going to want time off for those dates. What are the concerts? What are the recitals? What days do they need off? And make sure that your dispatchers know these dates, because the last thing you want as a dispatcher is go, oh, I need to get off today at 2 o'clock because I have a parent-teacher conference. And how long have you known about this parent-teacher conference? Well, every child who goes to school gets the calendar of the school events for the year. Make sure that you get a copy of the calendar, or your dispatchers do, or the managers of the different departments do, so that you can schedule the time off that they are likely to need. All right? This is planning in advance. Okay. So here are the 7. Say thank you to your employees. Make sure that everything is billed and all financing paperwork has been signed. Number 3 is to watch overtime, because people are used to it and they like their dollars in their paychecks. Make sure there's no overtime. Number 4 is to make sure all of your maintenances have been performed, or start your heating maintenances if you're up north. Number 5, think about giving them a Friday afternoon off, and instead of doing a breakfast, do a lunch and the rest of Friday off, and ask them how much they need to do, or figure out how much revenue they need to bring in, and ask them how that they're going to bring that revenue in extra next week to cover all this. They'll tell you. Number 6 is to figure out what you want to do from the end of the year for profitability and get a fall contest going, or starting to think about a fall contest. Number 7, for those of you who have children or your employees have children, get their calendars so that you can carve out the time that they're going to need off. And so those are the 7, but I have actually an 8th. Give thanks for this summer. I mean, we had a really, really cool summer. August isn't, summer's not over, but it's likely to slow down. There's a lot of contractors who have slower Augusts because they are crazy busy June, July, and August things have a tendency just to slow down again. So give thanks for the summer. How are you going to celebrate? Thank you for joining us. Choose one thing you discovered and implement it in your business. These ideas, tactics, and strategies help you make more money, have more free time, and give back. If you like today's program, spread the word. Please review this podcast on any device you're listening to it on. Help a fellow contractor make more money too. For comments or questions, call me at 770-729-0258 or email ruthking@hvacchannel.tv. Thanks for listening. Have a great and profitable day.